Well, let's talk a little bit about the kinds of lenses you can choose from if you have an interchangeable lens camera. You can kind of divide up the categories of lenses into two, and that is lenses that are fixed focal length and lenses that are variable or zoom lenses. So a fixed focal length means that this lens is going to be sort of stuck at a certain distance no matter what. I'm looking at this lens right here. It says this is a 50 millimeter lens. And that means that no matter what, this is going to be at an angle, a focal length, a zoomed up, distance of 50 millimeters. That's the way it is. And nothing I can do with this is going to change that. If I want to get closer with a picture when I'm using this lens, I have to physically walk closer. If I turn this ring, it doesn't do anything. It's the focus ring. So there is no zoom ring on this lens. You can't zoom up. It is fixed. The variable ones, zoom lenses, have a little bit more flexibility and convenience in that you can get to different distances. So this is a 24 to 70 zoom lens. This goes from 24 millimeters to 70 millimeters. And as you can see, the barrel extends. They don't all necessarily have to extend. Here's a zoom lens where the barrel doesn't extend. This is a 70 to 200. This is a super zoom. It goes pretty far out. The minimum length of this is 70, meaning that when you put this on your camera, it's already zoomed up pretty far. It's zoomed up to almost the maximum length of some other cameras just when you put it on. And then you can get all the way out there to 200 and really get, things far away and sort of not disturb the scene of what's going on in your photograph. Some of these lenses have image stabilization. You can turn on and off. So this one does not, but this one does. There's some settings on it that turn on the image stabilizer. And that means that if I'm holding the lens, hand holding it, if I have a little bit of shake, it will actually correct that for me. It's sort of, compensating for my shaking. It uses a little more battery from your camera, but very little. It's okay still. Some lenses will have an autofocus and manual focus switch on them, so you can switch to manual focus right on the lens and focus on your own, or you can leave it in autofocus and use the autofocus system of your camera. If you have a super zoom, a lens that is made to zoom on things from far away, you might even have a sort of intelligence switch that tells you what you're zooming on, how far away it is. So this is telling me things are from 1.4 meters to infinity or 2.5 meters to infinity. So if I want it to focus faster and the thing I'm shooting is within 1.5 meters, within 1.5 to 2.5 meters, I might have that switch on. Doesn't mean I can't focus on stuff if I'm not in that switch. It just means that it'll go a little faster when it tries to detect focus. So with all the convenience of these variable focal length lenses, these zoom lenses, you might ask yourself, well, why would I ever want a prime lens, especially when they make them in the same size? So these two lenses are pretty much the same size. This one is a prime. It's 50 millimeters. This one is a zoom. It actually extends out when I turn it. So you might say, well, why would I want a prime one? It seems that the convenience of the zoom would be what I want. Well, oftentimes lenses are, I'm an audio guy, a music guy. Lenses are like guitars. They're all different. They serve different purposes. A guitar that you want to use for one song might not work great for another song, and they have characteristics, things about them. You'll learn to like the look of a lens when you use it. So this 50 millimeter lens, for example, has an aperture setting of 1.8. And we talked about aperture, about how wide that aperture ring can go. This zoom lens has an aperture setting of 3.5 to 5.6. So that means that already the maximum open amount that lens can go is actually pretty small. It's not going to let me blur the background as beautifully as a lens that goes to 1.8. So if I want to take some really beautiful artistic shots with blurred backgrounds, I'm probably going to break out this prime because I know that at 1.8 of an aperture, I can make wonderful artistic shots. But if I'm going to be going out to, my son's baseball game or something, and I know that I'm going to need to be able to zoom in on someone at first, zoom out to see the catcher, zoom in on someone in the outfield, well, then the prime lens might not be as convenient. As much as it's, beautiful and takes beautiful shots, really what I'm looking for there is the ability to reach him from the bleachers and be able to see what's going on wherever. So the type of lens that you pick is going to be based on the situation that you have. That's why you bought into an interchangeable lens system, is because you're going to want to do different things depending on your situation. No matter what you do, no matter what kind of lens you get, you should put a ultraviolet or UV filter on it to protect it. Some of these lenses can get very expensive. I remember buying this lens for well over $2,000 when it first came out, and to get it repaired is extremely expensive. And if you are worried about a rock bouncing off the front of it, or walking through the brush in the woods, or you want to take this lens out into nature and do some stuff, you want to know that it's protected. So you get yourself a filter, which is something that just goes on the front of the lens to put on there. And UV filters, they tell you that they block out ultraviolet glare, and, anti-glare they'll call it. There's people that sort of will argue whether that's really effective or not. I will say that to me it doesn't matter. I am not going to take this wonderful expensive lens and let nature touch the front of it. I want to know that if a pebble or something hits the front of it, I can replace this $50 filter and then not have to get my multi-thousand-dollar lens repaired. When you do get your filter, you do want to try to get one as thin as possible. Again, it's all relative to the type of lens you're using. If you have a really expensive lens, then you want as little stuff in front of it as possible. You want to get the benefit of the lens. You want to see what the lens is seeing. Now, if you've got a little less expensive lens, like this one came with my camera, they call it the kit lens, I'm not going to spend $100 on the filter for this. This is sort of my knockaround lens. I use this if I am going to the beach or somewhere where I know might get a little rough, a little dirty. So I didn't really go nuts with how much I spent on the ultraviolet, the UV filter on this lens. But when you're buying a more expensive lens, you want to probably get as thin a profile one as you can possibly get, because think about how much you spent on the lens. Now you're going to put a piece of Coke bottle at the bottom of it and distort the picture. You don't want to do that. You want to really protect the lens but not impact the quality of the image. There's lots of other filters you can get into if that sort of thing interests you. Polarizers that can sort of, it's almost like having polarized lenses on your glasses. You can reduce reflections in water, get really blue skies, reduce reflections of water that's on trees and stuff. Neutral density filters to block out when it's really, really light out, different colors, reduction filters. So you can really go nuts with the filters and get really creative and do some stuff that Photoshop can do pretty well, but can't quite compete yet with just doing it right and having the proper filter on the front of your lens in the first place. I'm sure they'll get there soon, but I think that having some creative fun with filters can really be a way to infuse some life into your photos. So that's lenses and filters, and that's about what you need to know if you're going to get into picking up a separate kind of lens other than the one that came with your camera.